live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com. This is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Oh, thank you, John. Question. Has our Prime Minister taken total leave of his senses? It's not a frivolous question. Not after what the esteemed Prime Minister had to say yesterday. Did you hear this? I mean, there's growing concern in this country that inflation may force interest rates higher, because that's the solution. When we see inflation that looks like maybe it's going to get serious or running away, then monetary policy is that you raise interest rates to try and cool the economy down. I talked briefly yesterday about a time not that long ago when inflation was so steep that interest rates went up to about 18%. It was fatal for a lot of people. I paid 18% in a mortgage for 2 or 3 years, almost killed me, honest to God. So anyway, a reporter yesterday, that Trudeau was in BC. So a reporter asked Trudeau, he talked about the fact that inflation was 3.7, the highest it's been since, 2011. And he said, the reporter asked Trudeau if the Bank of Canada had any plans to battle higher interest rates, or words to that effect. That's really the gist of what the reporter was asking. Interest rates, are they going to go up? And if they are going to go up, does the Bank of Canada have any policy to battle climbing interest rates? Because climbing interest rates in this climate, with government debt so steep, I mean, it would be, if the interest rates went up appreciably, how the hell would we ever pay the interest on the debt? We already are paying, as I mentioned yesterday, and I mentioned before, and these are not my figures, these are government figures. Right now, with the combined provincial and federal interest on all of the combined debt, we are paying about $50 billion a year in interest. Money being taken from your pocket, from low income, middle income people, and going to rich people, big banks, insurance companies, people with enough money to loan money to the government. That's who gets the money, and the people who pay it are you and me. $50 billion. So with interest rates at record low. So if interest rates climb appreciably, as they probably will have to, look out. How are we going to first service the debt? So a reporter asked Trudeau a question in that regard. Very serious question. Cost of living is soaring. Inflation starts to take over. And as we say, when inflation takes over, monetary policy calls for higher interest rates. But this guy, this Prime Minister, what the hell is the matter with him? And instead of giving a thoughtful answer to a very serious question, the Prime Minister smirked. Did you see him? Smirked and responded, quote, and I'm giving you an exact quote of his exact words, okay? I don't think about monetary policy, unquote. I don't think about monetary policy? You're the Prime Minister, for God's sake. You're the leader of the country. You're in charge of monetary policy. Can you imagine? I mean, a world leader claiming he doesn't think, or she doesn't think, about monetary policy at the best of times would be unthinkable. But at a time like this, for our leader to claim he doesn't think about monetary policy, I mean, it borders on what? Concentrated stupidity. I mean, governments must constantly think about monetary policy with every decision that they take. I mean, it's monetary policy that dictates how much money is allotted to, let's say, healthcare, how much money is allotted to education, social programs, etc. That's monetary policy. That's what it is. Decide how much money do we have, How much money is needed in these various departments? That's monetary policy. How much money can we safely borrow? That's monetary policy. How do we plan to repay this? How long a period do we have to repay? It's monetary policy. What effect will our decision have on interest rates? What will it mean for business? What will it mean for decisions about investment in the country? What will it mean for unemployment? That's monetary policy. This is the prime responsibility of the government, for God's sake. Monetary policy dictates how much money you have left in your wallet or your purse after you pay the taxes, for housing and food. That's monetary policy. If our prime minister doesn't think about monetary policy, Mr. Prime Minister, can you please tell me who does in your government? I mean, surely to God, there's somebody in your government thinking about monetary policy. Now, I know that you once said that the budget would balance itself. Not doing too well doing that. But, I mean, somebody, please don't tell me that it's Freeland. I mean, this bobblehead, I'm going to tell you right now, if Chrystia Freeland is in charge of monetary policy, if she's the one deciding who gets money, how much you borrow, et cetera, if she's in charge of that, God help us. Because nobody else can. God help us. Any comments on that, folks? What do you think? I mean, has the Prime Minister just lost it here? And in that regard, let me ask you. I remember several months ago, I raised the issue of the cost of food. I said that my wife believed that the food had increased at least 15, maybe 20% in many cases. Now, I don't know if it's increased that much, but it's increased a hell of a lot more than 3.7%. This is a direct response to monetary policy. That's the carbon tax, for example, is monetary policy. Oh, my goodness gracious. So, let me ask you a question. How, in good conscience, after this and all the things that have happened with this prime minister, with this government, it just boggles my mind that anybody could still even conceive of voting for this guy. Please, let me ask you this. What has Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, other than bringing us legal weed, he lived up to his promise there. We have legal weed. It's been a fiasco, but we have legal weed. But aside from that, what promise has he ever kept? Is there a more open and transparent government? Are you better off than you were 6 years ago when Trudeau came to power? What possible reason could there be to vote for him? Is it that people just aren't paying attention? And I want to get into something else, another reason. For some reason, the mainstream media seems to be ignoring the human tragedy that's occurring in Afghanistan. Because for some reason, most of the emphasis seems to be on the Americans. And the big question is, can Americans get their allies out? And Biden is under heavy criticism, et cetera. His approval rating is way down. But, I mean, Trudeau is exactly the same. Trudeau diddled and dawdled, did nothing, had months warning that the Taliban were going to take over, that the Americans were pulling out. He had all of this time, was warned by many people, get our people out of there, and didn't do it. And now he's blaming, well, it's the Taliban. What the hell did you think the Taliban was going to do? But once again, here's Trudeau again. He just seems to get a free pass. Most of the criticism seems to be about Biden. And by the way, if you think that the Taliban are not going to be the cruel taskmasters, slave drivers that they were before, think again. Already a report of a woman being shot and killed in the streets because she wasn't wearing a hijab. Apparently, one of the reasons, of course, that both Biden and Trudeau are upset at the Taliban is because many of the people that are trying to get out can't make their way to the airport. The reason they can't make their way to the airport is because the Taliban have roadblocks and they're screening everybody. They want to catch all of the people that helped us. because they consider anybody that helped us, that helped the enemy, that they are treasonous. So you can be sure that many of those people that helped us and we promised to look after are going to be tortured and probably murdered. In fact, some indication some may already have been murdered. But once again, the Prime Minister gets a free pass on this. We knew that we should get the people out. He was warned to get them out. He diddled and dawdled, and now he says, "Oh well, we'll get them out." Wait a minute. How are you going to get them out? How are you going to get them out, Mr. Prime Minister? You said 20. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, I don't know if you saw this story or not, but the news that that the Prime Minister said that we will welcome 20,000 Afghan refugees has finally filtered down through to Afghanistan. And guess what? Hundreds, if not thousands of people today descended upon the Canadian embassy. They heard that we were going to take 20,000 refugees, so they're flocking certainly by the hundreds and maybe the thousands to the embassy, which is closed. So once again, loose lips. You know, the Prime Minister said, "Oh yeah, we'll welcome 20,000," with no means of getting them here. False hope. Son of a biscuit box. That's what he is. John, you've got some texts there.
Yes, we do. And thank you, by the way, to all watching this on Facebook, etc., sharing this on your timeline. Sharing is the best way to promote this show, and we can never thank you enough. Over on Twitch, I guess if I was a multimillionaire like Trudeau, I wouldn't give a tinker's damn about interest rates, inflation, or anything like that. Long Point Driver watching on Twitch says they are also ignoring Haiti. And Andre says, I'm certainly better off now than when Mr. Harper was in power. More diversity rights, and that is huge for me in the LGBTQ2 plus community. I would like to know O'Toole's position on diversity in his plan.
Wait a minute. What rights do you have now you didn't have before? Please respond, because I'd be very interested if you could spell out some of the rights that were denied under Harper.
All right, we'll look for a response to that.
Yeah, I would really, because I've heard this before. But what rights were you denied before? What rights do you have now? There's been no new laws protecting this community. What rights do you have now we didn't have before? Go ahead, John, please.
Okay, back to the top of my page here. Doug says, what was the name of the PM when the interest rates were that high the last time? Hint. Oh, yes, same as today's. Joshua says, Trudeau is half right. He doesn't think. Anne says, more statements from Trudeau. Quote, we took on debt so you didn't have to. Where the hell does he think money comes from? That's a comment from Ann. On Facebook, Greg says, back in the day, I had a mortgage at 18%, craft dinner by the case, and sweaters in the winter, and rented out 2 bedrooms. Mike says, thank God O'Toole is stepping up more now. I hope everything backfires on him. This clown's got to go. Another comment on Facebook, he has no clue about anything the average person deals with, only thinks about how his family can make off Canadians. He's never been in touch with what regular Canadians, only thinks about the scam of climate change and built back better bullshit. That's a full. Thank you. Another comment on Facebook, facebook.com/the Lowell Green. And again, he will not answer questions ever. They ask him again and again 3 times, will you resign if you have a minority government? Will not answer the question. So in other words, if we go through all of this for nothing, he won't resign? Question mark. Some of the comments coming out of Facebook.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Nice to hear people who don't ordinarily respond. I mean, we like to hear from everybody, but it would be nice to hear from some new listeners. I still have the question out there, and I'm sure that I've asked it before, but I have to ask it again. Why would people even consider voting for this man? Now, this one writer says, well, gay rights or whatever, I can't go through the LGBTQ, all the rest of it, but that he's got more rights. Please, I'm always trying to learn. And if in fact there are some additional rights been granted, then I will give Trudeau credit for that. But
okay, we do have a follow-up from Andre, by the way, to your question.
Please. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I thought that was important. Andre says we were not able to be who we wanted to be when Harper was in power. It was taboo in the government. We also have new rights for transgender employees.
Hold it. You were not free to be who you wanted to be. Who stopped you? That's nonsense. That is just plain utter whale poop. Okay, go ahead, John. Go ahead, please.
Whale poop. That's a first on this show.
Yeah.
We also have new rights for transgender employees, and we're allowed social media, which we were not allowed then.
What do you mean?
All right.
What do you mean? Hold it.
Yeah.
What rights? What rights have you been granted that you didn't have before? No. I'm not going to let you get away with it. You got to be specific. And social media, what's that got to do with Harper? Come on. Yeah, there may be more awareness, but that's got nothing to do with government. Okay, you've always had rights. Certainly since Harper. I'm not denying that at one point in this country that gay rights were not granted. I'm not denying that. Jewish rights weren't granted either. And in fact, the Catholic rights in many ways weren't. So yeah, the times have changed. But you tell me what rights, and I want you to be that you have now, you didn't have before. Go ahead, John, please.
A text is 613-413-2217. Lowell, why do you think the media will not hold Trudeau's feet to the fire? Maybe because he's their major contributor. Also, the Afghans that are stuck there don't vote for him. Let me see. People in the East, get you together. Elections over when it goes west. Get him out, says another texter from Alberta. Thank you for chiming in. Greg says Trump was correct when he called JT. Yes, sorry.
Go ahead with that again. That was a little confusing to me. Read that again.
Which? The one from Alberta?
Yeah.
People in the East, get you. I see. People in the East, get your S together. Elections over when it goes west. Get him out.
Okay, try and be just a little bit clearer. I still don't quite understand.
In fairness, that person, I think, texts like I do, all thumbs.
Okay.
We appreciate you chiming in.
All right.
Greg says Trump was correct when he called JT half-brain. Peter says Justin Trudeau has done nothing, only have weed because of his own personal use. Media ignore it because he doesn't care, so they don't care. They can't vote for him at the moment. Rob in Carlton Place with an email to lowell@blasttheradio.com. If I told my boss that I don't like to think about my job, my butt would be fired. The Liberal campaign is looking more and more like light rail in Ottawa. The wheels are falling off.
No axles. That's, just as an aside, this light rail, I mean, we've spent how many billions of dollars? How much traffic's been disrupted for how many years? I mean, it's astonishing. And I just have to remind you, okay, it drives some people nuts, that Lowell Green was about the only journalist anywhere that was very, very leery about the whole light rail. Andy Hayden and I had Andy Hayden on several times. Andy said, yes, we need the tunnel, but let us run buses, electric buses. That's the wave of the future, he said. And the more I hear what's happening, the more I have to think that Lowell Green and Andy Hayden maybe were about the only two people in the city who had their heads screwed on straight. Just want to tell you that, okay? I told you so. I do love saying that. I told you so. Sponsor, yes. Thank you, John. I keep talking about Shields, and I just want to make it very plain. Some people think that, because Shields is up there in Pakenham, that somehow, and it's not the great big box store, that the prices will be higher. They're not. I've done a little checking, and I compared some prices on the web from some of the big box stores, and in many cases, I'm going to be honest with you, Shields prices are better than the big box stores. And not only that, but there's some of the savings, particularly on Frigidaire products, are really outstanding. You can save $500 right now on a Frigidaire, various kinds of appliances. So check them out, folks. It's all in stock. You won't have to wait a long period of time for delivery like many of the box stores make you. So within 2 or 3 days, you'll have your product. And I repeat, compare the prices. If a price, $50 to $60 means a lot to you, check, and you may be very surprised at how low the prices are at Shields. Shields.ca. More text coming in, John.
Yes, Kathy says the West wants us to vote out Trudeau. Guy Annabelle says the only right that the LGBTQ+2 community have, they did not have the right to convert their children at 6 years old to the gender they think they want. Okay. Terry says people are afraid they will lose their jobs if they don't vote for Trudeau. Peter says lots of gay members of parliament in Canada, old liberal talking points, blame Harper. Harper didn't go around gay parades half dressed with his tongue hanging out. Some of the comments on that topic for Andre. Diana says, I posted this today, 2021 federal election prediction. If the polls are showing that the current federal Liberals might not win a majority and or are behind at least one other party, I see them canceling the voting days due to COVID concern. They have nothing to lose at this point, win another 4 years or suspend the voting and still have the remaining 2 years. Kim, thank you for chiming in today. Not sure where Kim is watching, but we thank you for that, either Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, of course. She says the Taliban are going door to door hunting down Christians, women and girls. Rob
well,
says,
no, it's not. They may be hunting Christians, but what they are really hunting for are people who helped us, interpreters, drivers, even people who worked in the embassy, maids, cleaners, janitors, etc., etc. They're looking, and not only going door to door, but as I stated, and this is just all coming to light now, they are screening everybody trying to make it to the airport. So what they're trying to do, and they say, listen, why do you want to leave? And apparently they have records. They've kept close records of a lot of people who did help us. And not only that, but also what's happening, and this story is just coming out, as you can expect, there are a lot of turncoats. In other words, a lot of squealers. So, if you had been working for us or the Americans, for example, during when we were there, if you had been working for us, probably in all probability, a good many people in the village knew that. And so now some of those people are coming forward. And I don't know if they're being bribed by the Taliban, probably are. And they're squealing. They're saying, well, Joe Blow over there or Mohammed, whatever it is, he helped them. He drove the truck for them there. He carried some guns for them. That's what's happening. And you can be very sure. If you really think that the Taliban are going to let people go that they consider to be treasonous, then I think you live in a different world than me. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm holding Justin Trudeau responsible. If there is one person murdered or tortured in Afghanistan who worked for us because they worked for us, and Trudeau did nothing to get them out, then I'm holding him, whatever it counts. One guy, I'm holding him responsible. Yes, John, more texts.
There's actually a sitcom on TV that I wasn't aware just how big a role the interpreters, etc., had for our troops in Afghanistan. But there's a sitcom out of the States called United States of Al, which gives you a comedic but still a very honest look at exactly how those Afghans who helped us out live in fear, even though they are now here, and how they fear for their families. It's called the United States of Al, and it's worth a watch, if I can just put that in there.
So you're talking about Afghanis who actually were airlifted out and they're now in Canada, but their families are still in Afghanistan. Yeah.
In this case, in the States, but yeah, it gives you it gives a lighthearted look at their life now, but still, the expressions of fear and they address the topic very honestly, and I appreciate the show. It's worth a watch.
Good.
Ray says, how do they know who worked for us? Then he chimed in, you just answered that, so we can move on from there. Tom says, government says food only went up 1.7%. Really? Are you kidding? Lori says, whoever gets the two Michaels out gets my vote. Rob says, I think people have lost a lot of trust in the integrity of any government, though. If you remember, it was the Brian Mulroney slapped another tax on us with the GST. And an email from Lisa Lowell. The problem I think I have with the Afghans coming here are the mentalities they bring with them to this country. Let's not forget the crimes committed in this country have increased largely by them and those of other countries like Somalians, etc.
Well, no, but we're not. I don't see any problem with Afghani. I don't think there are any Afghani gangs. Wait a minute, hold it. These people were our allies in a dangerous situation.
Yes.
They helped us. We needed help. And in return, we promised that we would guarantee their safety. Yes. We said to them, this was the Canadian government said to them, if you help us, if there's any problem here, if you fear, we will look after you. We will bring you to Canada. This was a government promise. These people are our allies. And for you to have this kind of, I can only assume that whoever wrote that is just a liberal trying to alibi our good friend Justin Trudeau here. No, Trudeau, head of the government, made the promise. You help us, we will look after you. We are not looking after them. We are abandoning them. We are leaving them to be tortured and murdered. That's what we're doing. Go ahead, John.
Can I weigh in on that just a little bit, please?
Please, yeah.
Last time this came up in a topic of conversation, that it's all these immigrants from far off lands causing all these problems. I actually went to the list of Canada's murderers, people who are imprisoned for murder. There's a lot of Smiths and Joneses, etc., on that list. So I take great offense to pigeonholing a small minority in that class. There are, I mean, look at some of our big named murderers. We had was he a colonel in the army? Paul Bernardo. Those are not people from Afghanistan or Somalia.
The fact of the matter is that most immigrants who come here want nothing more than to live a good life. Look at how people from various parts of Asia have come here, have prospered. Business. Look at the immigrants we've had from Lebanon. We wouldn't have a decent restaurant in this city were it not for Lebanese. Look at what the Italians have done for us here. We wouldn't have a paved road. I'm being facetious here, but if it wasn't for Italians. You've only got
to look as far as 800 people crammed themselves onto an airplane. That photo now infamous, sitting on the floor of an airplane, not even sitting in seats, just leaving everything they had behind to get the hell out of there for a better life, and they don't even know what that better life is.
Very true.
But it's better than where they are. That's very all true. I need to know.
Very true. Centennial Glass. Got to get a word in here as well. Centennial Glass up there in Industrial Avenue, not far from the train yards here in Ottawa, and in Renfrew. I keep forgetting to mention that Centennial Glass is in Renfrew. Emergency services, even if it's screen repairs of a window. As I mentioned yesterday, somebody puts a golf ball through your dining room window. Give Centennial Glass a call. Actually, the guy phoned me back and he said, "Lowell, you said that they put the golf ball through my dining." No. He said it was my bedroom window that the golf ball went through. And yes, Centennial Glass was right there right away. Fixed the window up for me. They're great folks. If it's glass of any kind, windows, doors, glass furniture, custom glass furniture, glass mirrors, repairs. And you know what? If you just want some information, as I mentioned before, there are some government programs. I'm not familiar with them all, but they are at Centennial Glass. If you have a project in mind in your house and you're not sure if there's a government rebate, give Centennial Glass a call. And even if you don't deal with them, they'll be glad to help you. They'll be glad to provide whatever information that they can provide. Centennialglass.ca. John, more texts coming in here.
Yes, and thanks, by the way, for letting me weigh in there. I appreciated that. A text at 613-413-2217. And again, thank you for sharing on Facebook. We really appreciate that. This person says, all liberals should wonder about where Justin Trudeau will run to if Yellowstone National Park blows up in our time. Is he ready? Cheryl says, couldn't agree with you more, Lowell. He totally is responsible for the situation. Mike says, and possibly wouldn't have been able to track down bin Laden without these people's help. Good point there. Kathy, thank you for contributing to the show today. She says, from what I've heard, Trudeau met up with the Clintons last weekend in Montreal, and then the next day Trudeau dropped the ball on the Afghans.
No, yeah. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. There was a story that he met with Hillary Clinton. Why? I mean, why the hell would our prime minister meet with Hillary Clinton, for God's sake? I guess it's his right if he wants to meet whatever he does. But it's just, I found it rather surprising. We're almost out of time. John, got some more text there?
Got 3 to close out the show for you, Lowell. Jason says, Hyena Road on Netflix, a must-watch. Canadian military in Afghanistan called Hyena Road. Jason, thank you for that recommendation.
I've seen it. Yes, that's good. It's a very good documentary.
I will put that on my list of must-watches. Rob says, no, you're wrong, Rick Fucci. The MST tax was supposed to lower prices on everything, but if you check your history, it was found that prices didn't go down on goods, so this just became another tax and a way for the government to get more money out of us. And Rick says the manufacturer's tax was 13% and rising constantly. The GST was lowered by Harper from 7 to 5%.
That's true. I'd forgotten. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's right. Harper lowered the GST by 2%. Thank you all, folks. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.